On Being an Artist, written by Robert Fritz, narrated by Rosalind Fritz. What could be better than to be an artist? It is one of the most amazing human undertakings there is. Being an artist is not simply a job. It is a way of life. Everything affects it. Everything in life can become material for it. The artist's vision sets direction. Fluency in current reality lays the foundation. Actions are motivated by bringing the vision into being. Learning is ongoing and directly connected to the vision. Everything, whether workable or not, contributes to the overall adventure of the journey. Structural tension becomes a state of being in our life orientation. While most of the world is focused on reacting or responding to the prevailing circumstances, the artist is giving birth to new possibilities. Non-artists rarely understand how artists think. Non-artists want artists to be politicians, philosophers, social commentators, historians, cultural ambassadors, spiritual leaders, expressing important messages to society so that things will improve. They don't understand l'art pour l'art, art for art's sake. While this idea has been true from the earliest cavemen painting on the walls of caves, the formal declaration of the idea comes from the 19th century, from Théophile Gautier, from his book Mademoiselle de Maupin. Even earlier than that, the phase and idea appear in the works of Victor Cousin, Benjamin Constant, and Edgar Allan Poe. Poe wrote The Poetic Principle in 1850. We have taken it into our heads that to write a poem simply for the poem's sake, and to acknowledge such to have been our design, would be to confess ourselves radically wanting in the true poetic dignity and force. But the simple fact is that would we but permit ourselves to look into our own souls, we should immediately there discover that under the sun there neither exists nor can exist any work more thoroughly dignified, more supremely noble, than this very poem. This poem per se, this poem which is a poem and nothing more, this poem written solely for the poem's sake. Art doesn't need justification. It doesn't have to have a purpose other than its own existence. The phenomenon that art often elevates, often reveals deeper truths, often questions assumptions, often opens new possibilities for people, while of incredible value in and of itself, does not give art meaning. It doesn't need meaning. Marxist dogma assigns art a social function to serve the state. In the past, the Church designated art to serve a moral purpose and God. Political movements demand that art promote their causes. New Agers hope that art will support their mysticism. Friedrich Nietzsche claimed that there is no art for art's sake, arguing that the artist still expresses his or her being through it. Put in those terms, doesn't everything anyone does express his or her being? Dressing in the morning expresses one's being. Making food expresses one's being. Being alive in the first place expresses one's being. It's hard to do something that does not express one's being. We are talking about motivation, not the expression of one's being. The motivation is to create art so the art can exist, independent of whether it expresses one's being, whatever that even means.
Why do you do what you do? The world wants an answer it can understand. It wants to know what the return on investment is. It wants to know what's in it for you. Some art produces fame and fortune. Nice for the artist who is in that position. But that is not motivation for making art. That is just a happy side effect when it happens.
When an artist gets rich beyond belief, he or she usually continues to make art. And there's the old joke, the poet went into poetry for the money. No matter how much fortune or fame an artist has, it doesn't help. There is something beyond money that lives in the artistic vision. At a certain point of mastery, the limitation becomes what you can imagine and what you can reach for. The challenge is how to bring the vision into being. It's a bit like when you drink wine. You begin to buy more and more expensive wines. Your tastes change, and you can get to the point where you can't afford yourself. Often, when you reach a new level of accomplishment, your imagination grows and your vision gets higher. You begin to think in terms that would have been impossible before. The pattern is seen in the series of Beethoven's symphonies. The ninth could not have been imagined at the time of the fifth. One thing led to another, each a foundation for the next. Sometimes, after achieving a great accomplishment, it's time to try something more simple. Growth of vision is not progression or progress. It is only another vision. You don't have to better yourself. You just have to mean it.
To the artist, the art is the point of making art. While others try to find rational explanations, searching to understand how an artist can simply make art for the sake of the artist doesn't feel the need to explain. How can you explain something inexplicable? This is not an existential mystery such as why do we exist? It is something that human beings do. We make art. End of story.
World, don't tell artists what they should be doing and why they should be doing it. In one of Robert Frost's poems, How Hard It Is to Keep from Being King, when it's in you and in the situation, Frost says, the type of freedom a poet seeks is not granted by kings. Freedom is a critical issue for the artist. Who has the authority to tell you what to write, what to feel, what to create, what to paint, what to do or not do as an artist? Artistic freedom is not about the circumstances, it's about the spirit of art. Some will like what you do, some will not. Who has the final decision? Only you. Claude Debussy, whose music is widely loved throughout the world, was misunderstood and criticized during the years he composed his music. Critics said his music was formless, senseless, and self-indulgent. Debussy continued to work in the direction he had envisioned. The world caught up. This is not to say that every artist's works will someday find an audience. It is to say that the motivation to make art is self-referential. You have your own reasons, not open to discussion. No one gets to vote except you. Art for art's sake leads to an insight. Artists make art because that's what they do. George Sand, who was not a Marxist but a socialist writer, wrote in 1872 that l'art pour l'art was an empty phrase, an idle sentence. She asserted that artists had a duty to find an adequate expression to convey it to as many souls as possible, ensuring that their works were accessible enough to be appreciated. I wonder if she understood what Chopin, her lover, was up to when the couple spent 3 months in Majorca, where Chopin wrote 23 preludes and the B-flat sonata for piano. If Chopin had listened to Sand, he would have composed more simply and with less invention. Diego Rivera, a member of the Mexican Communist Party and a great painter, claimed that art for art's sake would divide the rich from the poor. He said that the characteristics of what he called pure art was that it could only be appreciated by a few superior people. The art movement would only be available to the rich. History has proven him wrong. Some of the most inventive and original art movements have come from poor people, sometimes working in the ghettos. The instinct to make art transcends the circumstances, and rich people can also make art. J. Seward Johnson was one of the heirs of the Johnson and Johnson family. His love was art, not business. He developed a process to create life-size bronze statues that were castings of living people, depicting them engaged in everyday activities. Many of his works are installed in major cities around the world. Rich people and poor people have one thing in common: humanity. Economic circumstances do not keep anyone from being an artist, nor loving art. To paraphrase Frost, it's hard to keep from being an artist when it is in you and in the situation.